Nier Automata is made by Platinum Games back in 2017 to resounding praise across the board. Using the combat of Devil May Cry and the death system of Dark Souls, Nier is by far one of the best action games I've ever played, with a very good story to boot. So let's talk about it. You play as 2B. You are an android built to defend humanity from the machines on Earth, which were built by aliens that suddenly came to Earth. You're accompanied by 9S, a support unit who is ordered to assist you. And I'm going to be very frank, to say any more would just be a big disservice, and here's why. The world building, as well as the main story, is told over time through multiple playthroughs. The main story has 5 endings total, A through E. And at the end of ending A is typically when most people will stop playing. However, this is not even close to the end of the game. It's quite literally the beginning. The story is told through multiple playthroughs and different perspectives. It's designed this way. Pretty much all the important questions are answered in full. There isn't much of anything I can really think of that wasn't answered. That was at least important to the story. One thing to note is that this is an indirect sequel to Nier. The story doesn't directly connect, they're separate, but certain characters and other story elements are referenced in the game, so the connection is there. And the ending is beautiful, to say the least. It's a similar vibe to the Minecraft ending. If you know the Minecraft ending, you pretty much understand the vibe of the Nier ending. I loved it, and the story won't let you down, I promise. Like I said before, it's an action game, and it feels pretty good to play, but I have a couple of major critiques which I'll get into later. So, the combat feels good. You have your typical dodging and attack variants, but what's really cool is that there's a built-in combo system with all the weapon types, and they all combo in different ways with each other. This was really fun, and when you get a perfect dodge, you're given a window where you can get a free hit in to start a combo chain. Now, there are a lot of different weapon types. My personal favorite was the fist weapons, which made me feel like a monk from WoW, and Jotaro in one. There's also a level of character specking called plug-in chips, pretty much your RPG mechanic, and it's pretty solid. It does what it needs to. You can increase things like how long your dodge is, how efficient you are at hacking, attack damage, those kinds of things. There's also a Dark Souls death mechanic in the game. When you die, you lose your plug-in chips, and you need to recover them back. If you die again, they're gone. You can also see dead players' bodies on the floor, and you can either deconstruct their body to get materials, or you can repair their bodies to use as a combat distraction. It's a pretty cool mechanic, and I like that more games are getting clever with their online functionality, instead of it being just multiplayer co-op. For instance, Death Stranding, with items being thrown across the world for you to just use. One major thing I really like about the game is that it's not one genre. It's actually 3 genres: action, bullet hell, and a hacking minigame thing. Throughout the game, the gameplay will dynamically swap between action and bullet hell, which really mixes up the gameplay, and it doesn't feel cheesy either. It's very good and fair if you understand how the mechanics work. The hacking minigame is the only thing that I'd say is kinda sus. It's not really bad, but it's not amazing either. Now, I should mention why the hacking game even exists. Basically, throughout the main story, you'll play as 3 characters: 2B, 9S, and A2. Each of these characters have their own playstyle. 2B is well-rounded. 9S is a hacking character, so his actual offensive abilities are pretty low in damage, but his hacking is very high in damage. If you successfully complete a hack, if it's on a regular enemy, it'll just insta-kill him, but if it's on a boss, or just a general like mini-boss, it'll do a chunk of damage instead. And now A2 is a very offense-orientated character. She has 2 unique abilities called Taunt and Berserker Mode, which if you taunt a target, you do more damage and they do more damage. And Berserker Mode makes you go super fast, do mad damage, but it drains your health for every second that it's up. And once your health bar gets too low, it shuts off and you go super slow. So it becomes a balancing act of doing damage but also making sure you don't die. And all three of these characters are played at different points of the story. And one thing I should note is that once you beat the game, you can select any chapter you want to finish up whatever you need to finish up. Besides the main story content, there's also a lot of side quests, and also have a wave-based mode where you have a specific challenge for each round, like not being able to jump, for instance. Things like this are good because it gives the player more content to do once they're actually done with the game. One cool thing I like about the side quests is that from playthrough 1 through 2, they actually add on to existing side quests. And actually, similar to Dark Souls 2, they added in mini-boss enemies in your second playthrough to shake up the gameplay. The characters even acknowledge this, which I find kind of cool. Now, my major critique of the game is that the combat for the most part felt pretty easy. Granted, I played it on normal, but for me it's more of a game design thing, because as far as I know on hard mode, it literally only makes the enemies hit harder, not actually make them harder to fight, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm just too good for it, or maybe the game is actually easy, but I wish there was more difficult mechanics. And also the stun lock can be real. So real that developers added a plugin chip that literally makes you immune to damage after getting hit. So I suppose you could call it a solution to a problem they created. The PC port is pretty trash. At first I didn't really mind it because I would just load it in and play, and it played just fine, to be honest. Consistent 60 FPS, no dips. However, it was when I tabbed out and tried to tab back in and it bricked my PC, that's when I realized that this port is awful. The port has no settings at all and it is locked to 60 FPS. However, it is very smooth and consistent though. Now, thankfully, there is an excellent mod that is also extremely easy to download and makes the game better in a lot of ways, like upgraded textures for instance. The only thing I really messed with was borderless windowed mode because I wanted to be able to tab in and out and not have it break my PC. One thing I will say for the mod though is don't touch the frame rate. Even though you can unlock it, the game was designed for 60 FPS. So I'd say probably don't mess with that. Now, not much else to say. It's a lackluster port, but the mod fixes it, and I will have the link in my description to download. All you need to do is download it, and that's really it. It's very simple. It's the easiest mod I ever downloaded in my life. With solid combat and a very good story, how can you go wrong? Frankly, this is probably the easiest 9 I'll ever give. The nitpicks are very minor, and I really like the novelty of having multiple gameplay genres in one game, as the majority of games just stick to one, and also, they do it really good. I know this review is a lot shorter than my other ones, but that's just because honestly there isn't much to say. The game is excellent, and you need to just go out there and experience it for yourself.